Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of You Don't Know Jack. I'm Dr. Jack Groppel. I'm here with my associate, Dr. Haley Perlus. And today we're going to talk about a concept that actually just happened to me about 2 weeks ago, happened in my life. And it's the idea of being paralyzed, believe it or not. Not physically, but
I'm gonna say,
emotionally.
Jack, you're not paralyzed.
No, no, I'm not paralyzed. But the idea that we're stuck. And this is different than choking, everyone. So we're gonna unpack this together. But I want to begin with a couple of stories to sort of create the stage, and then I'm going to turn it over to Haley to sort of help us all unpack it. So this is what happened. I was on a webinar and I was a panelist, and it was for authors. And the idea of a writer's block came up, and someone used the word, I'm paralyzed. I feel paralyzed. I can't. And now this is not performance. In other words, this person just can't get started, like the little engine that could. And at the end, we were asked to, what are our thoughts about takeaways? And I said the following. I said, when I was on Mount Kilimanjaro on the second day, the clouds cleared. A lot of you heard me tell this story before. And I saw the peak, and I'm going, oh my gosh, there's no way. It's too far. It's too high. I mean, right away, my brain took me down a path, a rabbit hole. But immediately, I got with my son, who, as all of you probably know now, is adopted from China. And we actually adopted the famous phrase from Confucius that the voyage of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, and then take the next step and the next step. So, what I said as a takeaway at this conference was no matter how far away that mountain seems, or that writing project, if you will, seems, you can take the next step. And my friends, you would have thought that I had parted the waters of the Red Sea when I said this, because everybody just went, oh my gosh, unbelievable. Yes, I can take the next step. And I'm going, it doesn't seem so revelational. Anyway, so, and then I started thinking, as a sports scientist and as a coach, I started thinking about the difference between this and choking. At a recent Wimbledon final, two young ladies from Czechoslovakia were playing, and Noskova was up 6-2, 5-2. She's one game from winning the entire tournament, and she choked. She lost 5 games in a row, and she took a bathroom break, which I would have as well to break the momentum. But she literally goes through this whole process that she splashed cold water in her face, that she did all these things, and she actually did she said it, a reset. And then she goes on to win the tournament. So, what we want to address today is this idea of whatever this paralysis is. And I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed scientist colleague, the psychologist of our twosome. Haley, what are your thoughts on unpacking this whole idea of paralysis and then maybe as opposed to the idea of choking?
Yeah, and then we can actually really talk about the fight or flight or freeze because
Right.
there is something going on when we actually freeze. But where you're talking about the paralysis of analysis, even though we're using the words
Mhm.
paralyze, we're actually quite overloaded and overwhelmed. Our prefrontal cortex is really on, it's very highly active. And it's just never going to transfer into our motor cortex where we start taking action. Choking's different. Choking, you are taking action, but the action is very broken up. A simple example, and sometimes I do this when I'm, in person working with people, is I'll ask person to volunteer and I'll have them sit on the floor and then I'll ask them to stand up. And they can. They just stand right up. And what happened is very seamlessly in a nice sequence process, their prefrontal cortex made a decision and then kind of let the reins go, gave the control to the motor cortex. And then our bodies kind of followed this mental blueprint that we've been training all our lives and immediately stood up very seamlessly, very fluid, very systematically in process. And then I asked them to sit back down and then repeat to me in step by step, talk to me through the process of standing up. Well, it's very difficult. It's not nearly as fast. They don't know what they're doing. And
Oh,
their prefrontal cortex is now being, wait a second, what are the steps? Everything is broken down, nothing's seamless. And choking is kind of like that. It's where that seamless, that process, the strategizing, all the repetition and training to get this prefrontal cortex to motor cortex, prefrontal cortex to motor cortex, which is basically, thoughts to action, thoughts to action, thoughts to action to go very smoothly and seamlessly, almost as if you don't think you're thinking. That gets broken down. And then choking happens, and suddenly everything is stiff, right? Nothing's fluid. Everything is broken up. You either speed up, you slow down, you, well, in Wimbledon, you hit the ball as if, wait a second, I haven't hit it like that in forever. What's going on?
Right, right.
Good for her for taking that reset. And I don't know what exactly she did, but what she needed to do is get back to an ability to just go out there and do what she's been training her body to do instead of having everything broken down. And that's very different than the paralysis of analysis. The paralysis of analysis is when you are, instead of going from like, okay, I perceive something going on in my environment, I'm now going to orient myself around that and then make a decision and then commit and take action, execute. They get stuck in the perceiving, the orienting, and now they're analyzing. Now they're comparing. Now they're asking, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? So there's never any real decision that's made, never any commitment to that decision, and never any execution.
Really interesting. The idea of the writer's block where you just can't even get started. And I think about like speaking, for example, someone gets a work assignment that um, you're going to speak at our sales conference, and there's going to be 500 people in the audience, and you've never done this before. And before it even happens, you don't even know you're going, no, there's no way I can do this. And it's kind of like when I saw the mountain, there's no way. I wasn't even thinking about taking the next step. It was till I had to process it and step back. I think it happens in so many different areas, emotionally, mentally, physically. The idea that we just can't don't even know what steps to take.
Well, you used this term in one of our most recent episodes, amygdala hijacking.
Yeah.
So in those moments, a threat kicks in, a perceived threat kicks in. And so what if I can't breathe as I continue to climb this mountain? What if they hate what I'm writing? What if all these what ifs,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that threat. So now you're in protective zone, right? And our primary motivation is not to thrive, it's to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves safe. And so there, of course, is no thought to any action because you're caught up in all the prediction. You're caught up in all the comparison, caught up in
So,
all the what ifs.
why don't we use, I think something that a lot of our listeners would be able to identify with is the idea of public speaking or professional speaking. Because everybody gets asked to do this, and as you and I both know, it's one of the biggest fears that humans have is speaking in public and speaking in front of people. Um, and I know people that would say to you, I've seen this happen, and you have too, ad nauseum. People say, there's no way I can do this. Then they get in front of an audience with a microphone, and you're going, what? Who are you, and what have you done with my friend who said she couldn't or he couldn't do this? And they're amazing. So, are there steps if someone has a writer's block or someone has a speaking block or a mountain climbing block, or what, as a psychologist, like in the writer's block, somebody might say, "Well, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start. I've got writer's block. I don't know what to do. Speaking, I don't know what to do." And then we've all heard the jokes about, well, pretend everybody's naked or pretend everybody's in their underwear. And, I hated that, by the way, when I was starting to speak and doing all this. That was nonsensical to me. Um, so how do we find what those steps are? What if we don't know what the steps are?
I believe the reason to pretend everybody's naked is just to kind of lighten up the mood, right? To get to shake out
Correct.
that anxiety and that threat. But I'm with you. I'm much more in order to think less, I think we need to think more strategically. So that's one of the key principles of my practice. Let's think less, more strategically. So, I'll offer up two recommendations, and it really depends on how much time you have in the moment. Because if you're literally about to get up on stage, you got 60 seconds until it's your turn to go, versus sitting in your office with some more time, you know, with the desire to start writing, for example.
Let's do both.
Let's do both.
Let's do the first one. You're getting ready to go on stage in front of this sales meeting that you've been told you're going to speak at. You have your notes, and there's panic.
Yeah,
There's a little bit of panic, or there's a little bit of paralysis. What steps? And then what I want to do is you've got 2 months before you have to do this.
right. Got it. So the
Okay.
first one where you're in the moment, you're in the exact moment that you want to perform. Remember, your mind is not paralyzed, even though it may seem that you're frozen. You're actually just going through comparison, deciding, predicting, evaluating. I mean, you're all hung up in those types of thoughts. What you're not focused on is again strategic action. So I always come back to this question. What does this moment need from me? And hopefully, beforehand, if I was working with you, we would have already identified 1 to 3, no more than 3, because after 3, the mind gets confused. 1 to 3 real strengths that you're not looking to develop. You already have them. What do you know how to do? What can you completely trust? Can you trust that you can make eye contact with one person on the stage when you walk up onto the stage?
Yeah.
Sorry, with one person in the audience. Can you make eye contact? Do you
Mhm.
trust that you can stand there and smile and just take a deep breath and look around? Do you trust that you can start off? It wouldn't be me, but it might be you because you've got that personality. The joke, right?
Right.
You start out with, do you just have that off the cuff joke?
Yeah.
What does this moment need from me is the question. And you go back to your 1, 2, maximum 3 strengths and you choose one. And now that allows you to stop thinking about the comparison, the what ifs, the evaluation, the analysis. I am telling my brain, signaling my brain to focus on, going back to our previous episode of controlling the controllables, but I'm focusing on what does this moment need from me? And I'm not trying to, and I don't have a lot of options. I've got 3. And for me, I set the eye contact because that's something that I do. I will scan the audience for energy and I'll find someone to kind of look at and just feel that energy because I know them that brings out my bright self and I get going. There are other people I know I can just go out there and I can start with a joke or I have this question. I always start my presentation with this question. Again, you got to have something strategic. And because you have trust in that, you're more inclined to be able to allow yourself to take action.
It's fascinating you brought up my personality because I've never told you this story, but at one of the large events that I spoke at in the late 90s, here I was talking about nutrition and healthy eating, and guess who I was following, Haley? I was following Ben and Jerry, the Ben and Jerry of ice cream fame, and I'm following them on stage. So I get on stage and I actually made a comment. I said, "So this seems a little awkward, doesn't it?" To 20,000 people. 20,000 people. I'm going, this seems a little awkward, even to me. I'm following Ben and Jerry, and I'm going to talk to you about healthy eating. But then I was able to come back to the fact that I followed Ben and Jerry and how you can have the ice cream, occasionally, and you can, and how you can support what you just heard from Ben and Jerry. So, but that was part of the wisdom and the experience that I'd had in being able to do that. But you're right, I did that 100% off the cuff.
Mhm.
And I've never told you that I followed them
Love that. That's
on stage.
hilarious too.
Um, and I was able to do that quite a bit. If somebody before me had made a joke and I was able to bring it back to that, so I made it more in the current moment. Um, and then I also had the stand-along jokes that I knew I could pull off in front of anybody. I always had those too.
Yeah.
Um, but you're right, that I was the icebreaker strategically was to get the audience to laugh and not just laugh at something, but laugh either at me, self-deprecating, like here I am talking about this. following Ben and Jerry. Right. And right. Of course you are. And of course you're the expert who made this schedule. I mean, honestly, and that got everybody, you endear everyone to the moment, not to me, but to the moment that they're with you.
Yes, but that is for you. So if I was like, Haley, just, try to be like Jack, that would never work for me. It would
No,
make my
no.
analysis even worse.
And this is why I wanted to bring that up because you said that about my personality. But for someone, I think your ideas are spot on. If you and we're still everybody stay with us because we're still going to talk about you've got that assignment 2 months later. We're still going to talk about that. But this is in the heat of the battle, in the heat of the moment, is what are you thinking about? Um, and what are your plans when that I mean you should plan for it, shouldn't you, Haley?
Well, so the planning is in having those three options, right?
Okay, repeat those again. Repeat those again.
Yeah, just choose. Look at yourself right now. It's not, we can always improve, but right now, it's not something that you have to develop from scratch. But what are your 1 to 3 strengths? No more than three, because then the confused mind says no. So, what are your strengths? So, for me, I know because people have told me, but I also feel it. One of my strengths is bright. One of my strengths is energy. So I'm not a jokester though. It's if I make some people laugh, it's not it's not intentional. It's because it's just I was being silly. I don't
Yeah.
have pure personality. So, but I can walk out there and I know that I can create energy. I can connect and I do it by just, by focusing on one person. So I'm not overwhelmed by the whole audience. But I look out there and I choose one person that I know that I can trust myself to find and connect, and then I can give that person my energy, but I'm really giving everyone it.
Interesting. So you're focused on one person, and
Or
everybody can do that.
yes, but it's like that. You ever go into like a museum and you look at a picture and everyone thinks that that person is staring at them? Like
Oh,
if you
that's
look
right.
at the Mona, like it's
Mona Lisa. That's what just came to mind. The Mona Lisa.
Mona Lisa. So everyone's looking at the Mona Lisa and everyone's thinking she's looking straight at me.
Right.
I actually feel that I have that superpower, if you will, when I walk on stage. But I'm the one that has to bring it. I can't rely on them. I'm the one that has to bring it. So I do lock in on someone out there who seems, I'm ready for you, Haley. Like I'm smiling. I want to be here. I'm energized. I lock on someone and then that somehow calms me and then allows me to continue on. So that's my first action step. That's
So
one
you're
of the
being very
three.
intentional though in that first action step.
Yeah, 100%. Because
Very
also,
intentional.
the intention does two things. In order to eliminate one thought, you have to replace it with another.
Hmm.
So in order to eliminate the what ifs, what if I go wrong? What if I made a mistake? I can't do this. In order to replace that by saying, go out there and find your person and bring your energy to that person, knowing that I'm bringing it to everyone. It's like the Mona Lisa. I'm not saying I'm Mona Lisa, but you know what I mean when from that
I understand.
experience. I am now being so strategic in a strength of mine. And because I'm tuning in so intently and deliberately to my strength, it automatically, all the other what if thoughts, they like use it or lose it. They just go away. I don't have to tell them to go away. I don't have to waste energy pushing them away. I'm zoning in on my strength, which allows me obviously to show off my strength, which is great, but it also allows me to naturally, organically let the other stuff go.
All right, well, let's flip it now and let's talk about okay, my boss has given me now the goal is 2 months away, whether it's a speech, whether it's a competition, it's 2 months away. I need to be my best self when I do this, whether it's delivering the speech, whatever it might be. Now, Dr. Perlus, we're all here, we're all in your chair and we're listening.
This is the time where we have time to engage in a cognitive, I'm hesitant to say the word reframing because I don't actually think it's reframing, but well, it's to get you to reframe. But there's an intermediate step called countering. So instead of going from I can't to I can, which would be what people think of when they say cognitive reframing, just turn that frown right side up,
Right?
right? Sometimes it's not that easy. So what we do is we counter the thought. And so if you say, I can't do it, the follow-up question is, Is that 100% guaranteed to be the truth? How, where may that not be the absolute truth? I call it the Swiss cheese exercise. We start poking holes at it.
That's what happened to me on Kilimanjaro. When I saw the clouds clear and I said, I can't do it. And then I'm going, wait a minute, dude, you've been training for a year. You know, you and your son have been so looking forward to this. I literally started poking holes in I can't do it. I didn't come up with immediately that the phrase from Confucius. I had to poke holes in the statement, I can't do it. And that's exactly the process that I went through, though. I said, what? Wait.
Yeah. Where is that not true? When has that not been true in the past? How might that not be true? And this is actually what I used with a youngster last week. I asked her, are you a fortune teller or are you a truth teller? And in
Yeah.
any moment, you can ask yourself, wait a second, this thought that I'm saying I can't do it. Am I being a fortune teller or am I being a truth teller? So that's one of the strategies, the countering strategy. Instead of just going from an I can't to an I can, how do you know that you can't? Who says you can't?
So let's say that you've got a presentation to give. Let's use that, and it's in 2 months. Would you recommend something as mundane? I know this sounds mundane, but just start writing down some thoughts about what this presentation might entail, like what it might look like. I mean, even all the way to what I might wear. I mean, I'm just trying to brainstorm with you. What would that look like, a countering strategy on giving a presentation in 2 months?
So in that strategy, so that's actually what I would think is different than countering. Because I'm countering is I haven't written anything yet. I'm just
Okay. All right.
trying to look at it and say, like, how do you know? Like, come on, you're not a fortune teller. How do you know that's going to happen? Or where has it actually worked in your favor in the past? For those reasons. What you're talking about is actually giving yourself a little bit of grace and throwing out the demand of perfection.
Correct.
And Brene Brown actually has, oh goodness gracious, I'm definitely going to screw it up. So I'm just going to, she
You
has
could
a,
put it in the notes. You could put it in the notes.
okay, she has a word for it, but it's like, just get your ugly draft out.
Yeah.
Like your first draft is the ugly, crappy,
You don't have to share it with anybody,
she
right?
might, she might swear to. What?
Yeah, yeah. But you don't have to share it with anybody.
No, I think it's like your shitty first draft. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
she
no, it's
has
good.
the word to you. So you give yourself a little bit of grace. So you're not, again, this removes the demand, the must, the need to, the have to be perfect. Even good. Who cares if it's good? Give yourself some grace, but don't let yourself off the hook. And those two I always put together. Give yourself some grace, don't let yourself off the hook. And let's see what happens when you just throw out a sentence. Now, what you're doing is again moving away from the comparison, the prediction, the amygdala hijacking. And now you're just taking action, strategy, tactics, technique, and just throwing out a sentence.
Yeah.
And then that gets you out of the evaluation mode and more into a performance mode. And then let's see what can happen from there. So that would be a second technique. The first one would be countering. How do you know that what you're saying is absolutely the truth? And then a second option is to give yourself some grace. Don't let yourself off the hook and have that, shitty first draft or whatever it is, your
Love
first
it.
attempt.
I love it. So what other steps? Do you have any others? I mean, this has been wonderful. I think I've loved this conversation.
Well, I love visualization. I love imagery.
Mhm.
And a lot of us use imagery and visualization to just predict or create the outcome. You and I have recorded an episode on it, on visualization and imagery. I welcome everyone who's watching and listening to go back to that. Visualization is a fabulous way to practice without having any feared consequences happen, right? Because it's just happening in your mind.
Yeah.
But just let your start wondering, like, let's see what happens. And in your mind's eye, before you even go out there and take physical action, just imagine yourself moving from this paralysis of analysis into what would it look like if you just started taking action and you can just visualize it.
Right.
And that might free up some energy.
Visualize the process of being in it.
Yeah, but also visualize the sequence of moving away from the fear, from the threat
Yeah.
to the challenge.
I like that.
Just
I like that a
visualize
lot.
that imagery. What would it look like for me to go from a threat to a challenge?
And the idea of I can't do that to I can take the next step. I mean, even that positive, that it is a restatement. You could call it a positive affirmation, but it's a restatement of I cannot to I can take the next step. I'm not saying I can be successful. I'm saying I can take the next step, which is how we started this whole thing.
Well, there you said, because that next step. So, and then again, I like to give the mind direction so that the body can then kind of like obey and follow. So,
Mhm.
what is that next step? Strategy, tactics, technique.
I love it.
I do think it might be nice for people to know what it actually happens when you are in that free state. And we
Oh
have our
yeah.
sympathetic nervous system, we have our parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic is usually what we think of, calm and restorative and restore energy. And there is a survival in that though. Like a predator, in the animal kingdom,
Mhm.
there are animals who do freeze as a protective mechanism so that the predators don't see them, the predators don't smell them, right? And that's almost like your parasym if I'm remembering this correctly, the parasympathetic nervous system actually lowers your heart rate, calms your muscle tension, changes your skin conductance so that you actually almost go into like it's not a coma state, but you're actually so calm that your predators don't know you're there. And that's frozen. It's like there's something that goes on between your brainstem and your automatic nervous system. And that's actually frozenness. That's not the right word, but that's like the real state of being in that freeze state as a protection mode. But that's not what you and I are talking about. So when people say, no, I'm frozen, no, you're really not. You're in this overload. Your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala is just so activated that it's not letting you pass through into the basal ganglia and the motor cortex and all the other parts.
Yeah. I just love this. I mean, there is I mean, my undergraduate degree was in wildlife biology. I mean, there is a species of mongoose in Africa that will play dead. I mean, and predators will leave it alone. They think it's dead already. So it literally, but if you think that its brain is not focused on no movement whatsoever, like like not even breathing, because they're so good at it. I mean, if you've ever seen it, it's fun. It's honestly funny to see this on YouTube and look it up and look mongoose playing dead. I mean, it's just these little things and then they don't move. It's the funniest thing in the world that they don't move.
Yeah, so it's nice for us to understand where we're at so that you now understand that your brain's not shut off. It's not shut down, it's not shut
No,
off.
no.
And
And
these
in fact, often I'm sure you've done this. I've done it ad nauseum with athletes and you get them to do something. Go, no, that didn't hurt, did it?
right,
And they go, no, it was great. All right, let's do it again.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it again. Okay. Haley, I've so enjoyed doing this one with you today because it's so recent that this all came up about this take the next step and how it seemed to hit these people that were writers. Any last words? Any thoughts? Last thoughts?
No, it was a great idea. And I think it's important for people listening to know that this is how you and I create these topics. Our slogan, if you will, for our podcast is life is hard, let's prepare for it. And we're actually looking at each other. Hey, what do you want to talk about? Well, this happened in my life, and this is what someone's going through. Like we're literally bringing life to our episodes so that we can prepare for it.
Yeah, we are trying to do this in real life, everyone. Like as something happens, Haley and I are talking about it, and then how might we share that with you as a takeaway for you to grow in this time right now?
Yeah.
So, for all of you listening, please give us your thoughts and comments. We'd love to hear from you. Questions, we'd love to hear your thoughts about, how's this ever worked in your life and what would you like to know more about this? If you're interested in this idea of energy management training or team building, please reach out to our colleagues at Evolve Leadership. Haley and I work very closely with them, and they are actually doing corporate training and learning in this whole field. So, we definitely recommend that. But gosh, Haley, it's been so great doing this with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just love it. What are we, 11, 12 episodes in at this
Yeah,
point, and it's a highlight, Jack. So
been a
thank you.
blast. Thank you so much. Take
Uh,
care, everyone.